Mr. Mac Forbes. How are you, mate?
Very well, Tom.
Thank you, mate. I'm tremendous. I'm a bit wet and cold, though. It's been a woolly old day in the Yarra Valley, hasn't it?
The flat tyre in the rain was a highlight.
Oh, my God. So we're on our way here, and you've driven up ahead, and all of a sudden I'm like, Mac, you got to come back. I've got a flat. We're sitting outside the vineyard, changing that, thanks to Brett and yourself, changing that in the middle of the rain.
It's all part of the experience we offer.
I feel like every time we try and come down here and see you, we're just derailed by something.
Well, it's part of our screening process.
So we don't pass the test.
Correct.
Well, we're sitting here in the Don Valley vineyard, in your little outpost out here, which is a lovely spot. The fire's roaring, thank God. It's freezing and wet. You can probably hear the rain as well. So it's a nice spot to take a break and have a chat and a glass of wine. We'll talk a bit about Don. But, mate, when I think about Mac Forbes Wines and the project and talking to yourself for how many hours over the years about everything you're doing, and it's such a unique view on the wine world, the way that you farm, the way that you're trying to capture this place. And if I could just go back to the beginning of that for a minute. So we've got the 06 Woori Yallock Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Is that the second year
vintage for us? Yep.
So, 20 odd years ago, what was the idea when you made this wine for where you wanted Mac Forbes Wines to go?
Yeah, it's funny trying to go back and think about it, but I had drawn up a little, I guess, picture, which I've still got in my notebook, and single vineyard was really at the core. And
why was that?
So in 98, I did a vintage at Coldstream Hills and saw lots of interesting parcels come in. I was still at uni, I had no idea. But even then you're like, wow, these parcels are radically different. You go to Burgundy and you just see an innate understanding of the connection and the understanding was so superior to what we had here. And I always felt like we had a bit of disconnect.
We went, 98's before I was involved in wine, but my feeling of that era was we weren't so focused on vineyards, but more styles, right?
Yeah, the whole thing of we can make whatever you want and the winery will fix it all was, dominating. So I think I came back and it was interesting even just talking about John Middleton, and having worked with him. And then when I released the first 2 Chardonnays, 2 Pinots, it was Coldstream and Woori Yallock, single vineyards. And I gave him some bottles and initially said, I don't really get it. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because he was one of the smartest people I've ever met. He knew wine inside out. And it took a while. And then I remember after maybe 12 months, I was chatting to him, he said, I get it now. I get why you're doing it. Mm. I think it wasn't that he didn't get it. He just didn't know why.
Yeah.
So I think being born here, white Australian, you're trying to find, especially connection with land. What the hell are we doing here? Can we honour the responsibility in an appropriate way?
But what created those feelings in you? Because there'll be plenty of other people that were raised in this area that make wine in this area, but you've always seemed to have a really close connection to the Yarra, to the place.
Yeah. I don't know where it came from. I think growing up here, we grew up on 50 acres. We never knew how to farm it. I was really conscious of that. And so that disconnect stayed with me. And then this amazing plant that just adapts. And you think of Barrack and the elders here that recognised how, the only painting, I don't know if you know this, but Barrack, who was a really important person, Corindurk here did a lot of lobbying with government. He had a really close ties to the Depuras and he painted a vineyard. It was the only reference to European settlement in Australia that he made through his art. Right. And he loved the fact that this plant could tell a story of this place, even though it was introduced. And there's this lovely permeating mindset of this is where we are now. We can't turn back the clock, so let's do it really well together. And I feel like that's probably just, sat there churning away. It's like, do we want to impersonate Burgundy or other regions, or do we want to be much braver and reveal what our own story is? It's much easier to hide.
That's fascinating. Which came first for you? Was it the enjoyment and love of the drink in the glass, and this is pretty tasty, and then realizing the stories it can tell, or the other way around?
I don't know. It was around 16, 17, 18, and Dad would pull a cork while he's cooking dinner, and it was just, he loved cooking. He loved having a glass of wine, whether it was corked or not, he probably didn't know. But you know, I think the ceremony was great, and I still think that ceremony, putting agriculture on a table for discussion as well as consumption is pretty nice.
Because I know for me, like, you start having a few glasses of wine, actually this tastes pretty good with food.
Yeah.
And then you start to meet the people and you go, oh, these people made this thing. And then for me, the final step was then going to the places and understanding the terroir and the version of it and the connection to land.
And the generosity that sits in there.
Yeah.
There's so much generosity in this industry.
Yeah, no, I agree. As exemplified.
How's the sound on the roof?
Yeah, just
this is so loud.
No, it'll come out fine because this thing just captures everything. I think the audio. Yeah, a little bit of pitter patter in the background will be quite nice, actually. No, the generosity you speak of, exemplified by your good self at the Forbes Airbnb.
Yeah, exactly.
Last night, mate. The 06 Chardonnay, like, looks still fresh as a daisy, to be honest. Like it's
not breeding life.
Yeah, like it's textural and it's open, but there's a lovely ease and freshness to it too.
I think so. What was it? 2 weeks ago, we did this vertical of Ferguson, which you were there for, and I wasn't expecting to be confronted by the chapters quite so vividly. You're sort of thinking, oh, great, there's a little library of wines, and hopefully we see some progression. But I was really quite surprised just how stark these chapters presented.
Yeah,
and
it was wild to see, and there were jumps.
Yeah,
you could see you made a change, and then bang, It was really interesting. We visited Ferguson this morning, obviously.
Yeah.
So Ferguson on the label from 2020 onwards, was it?
21
onwards, but these are all the same vineyard, obviously.
Correct.
An amazing site. It was pretty hairy this morning with the wind and just there's the steepness of the slope there. But how did you come about Woori Yallock and Ferguson?
So small family dairy farmers put in this vineyard with Martin Williams back in 95, southwest facing. So it's not that long ago that I started, yet no one wanted this fruit because it was facing the wrong way for pretty much the majority of people.
Wanted power.
They wanted north facing. That was historically what, where everyone was gravitating. And it was only bizarrely in Portugal, looking at in the Douro Valley, north facing fruit and how fresh it was, that you're like, shit, it's not going to Burgundy to work out how to work in our conditions. Took so much more out of adverse conditions in the Douro Valley.
Right.
You're like, maybe we've got this whole aspect thing around the wrong way for early varieties like Pinot and Chardonnay. So came back, and the first vineyard I found that worked against the norm was this one. And the fruit was available because no one wanted it. And so it was a pretty amazing, coincidence, I guess. And the way it came from there, amazing people. And yeah, it's been really.
And so you've been working at Mount Mary until that point for some time, and then what caused that jump to do your own thing? And
so from Mount Mary to the enemy in Europe, working for South Corp.
Right.
And then Portugal and Austria and things from there. But it was always nagging. And I looked at what John did, and you think that power of that first modern generation, so not the 1880s to 1930s, but when it started again in the 60s, it's interesting when you jump forward to when I came in, but there was a group of producers, and between probably a bit of ego, strong opinions, absolute vision, they all went about creating something, and they, between them, pushed themselves pretty hard, I think. And I'd say there's probably some, there's an element of that when you think about 03, 04, 05, 06, who came to the industry there, and whether it's Luke or Timo or Bill or, and everyone put their own name on the label. You think about all the forces. So you go, well, I don't think I did anything particularly creative, but I think it's interesting some of the things I employed were employed by people I'd never met of a similar age. And in some ways we helped each other enormously. And it was sometimes by challenging, sometimes by just pure support.
Yeah, and there's a great cohort generation that came through in those early 2000s.
There's that South Pack group. But yeah, I think it's why did we all put our name on the label when the first round was all property names, wasn't it? You know, Mount Mary, Yarra Yering, Seville, go through it all. So I think what had happened to brands in the meantime have been so disastrous, from supermarket brands and all these hollow, you know, labels, that it was, this is my take on it. I haven't really spoken to the other guys about it, but it almost feels like we're like, the only way to distinguish ourselves from all the other shit is just put our name on. Yeah. And it's, in hindsight, maybe it's the wrong thing, because you go, now we've all got teams really that help in different ways, and how ridiculous, but this is where we are.
How do you think about your brand? It's been always interesting to observe the Mac Forbes brand over the year, because it is such a clear, you know, it's Mac Forbes. The packaging is really distinct, and the storytelling is so unique. Like, do you put much thought and strategy into what you're doing, or are you just expressing yourself through the brand?
We think a lot. If you look at how we package it, we haven't got Pinot on the front.
No. Yeah, not very helpful, by the way.
No barcode on the back either.
You can make the Mac Forbes a little smaller too.
Exactly. So I think I think we do consider quite heavily what's the importance of what we're trying to communicate. Yeah. And we don't want it to be about Pinot leading. We want it to be about place. Yeah. So, you know, it was probably a bit silly putting Woori Yallock on the front back in the day, but I wanted people to feel a connection with place.
But it's fascinating.
You can look up a map and find Woori Yallock.
Even then, 20 years ago, you obviously had the same idea. Yeah. It's not about, you know, the tiny little Mac Forbes. It's look at that. You can barely even see it. Yeah. It's about the place.
Yeah. So I'm super proud of that. It's not original or creative, but it's ours.
Yeah. Well, within the Australian context, it's pretty unique. I've got another Woori Yallock wine I want to look at. This is a 2015. I believe it's a Pinot. It doesn't say. It could be a Shiraz.
Doesn't matter, does it?
Could be a Merlot.
Doesn't matter. It could be fucking anything.
It doesn't matter. The variety is just a vessel for the soils. 2015. I know you made a lot of changes over the years to how you farmed this site. This is probably a good wine to talk a little bit about that. So between the 2006 and the 2015, and looking into now, like, what have you changed with the farming?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of new oak back here.
Yeah, obviously.
20%. But the crushing and the skin contact and phenolic embracing was always there. By 2015, we dropped irrigation and we were farming everything. Yeah. So after the horrendous 2011 vintage, Dylan Grigg was already working with us, had been for a few years working with the growers, but we weren't running vineyards. Started to say, we'll do a bit of extra work and help. And then 2011 came along, and it was so demoralizing for so many people after a long period of drought to then go into this wet year, that we had 5 vineyards in the space of a month or two say, they're all yours. So we went from no vineyards under our control to 5. Wow. And thank God Dylan was, was in the team. And so that happened really quickly, but really seamlessly. And then we had to go about trying to sort out what to do. And it was just put a spotlight on, you can have a philosophy, but if you don't have the right equipment, you can't execute exactly how you want. So it was scrambling from the outset, and everything going on credit cards to just, how do we get the right equipment to minimize and get towards where we need to be, which for dry farming, organic program, you can't just flick a switch and do it overnight unless you've got really deep pockets, or you can implement and bring in equipment over time. So we bought a lot of secondhand equipment.
And that must have really stretched you and the business over those years to have that dedication to investing so much in the equipment and the farming.
Yeah. And you throw in phylloxera in there as well. Yeah. It's that fantastic question that has been posed numerous times, which is, if you'd known you're going to, that phylloxera is coming in 07 and I came here at the end of 04 to start this, would I have moved if I'd had that prior knowledge? Would I have gone to another region?
You probably would have stayed here.
I probably would have stayed here, but that's because I didn't know how hard it was going to be.
Yeah, but you never know. I mean, not that everyone deals with phylloxera. There's no phylloxera issues in e-commerce, thankfully. But it's so much harder than you think.
Yeah.
Like, were we talking to you last night, or someone else has said, for our journey, has this been easier or harder than what you imagine? It's a million times harder.
Yeah.
And for you, farming, I can't even imagine.
Totally. But I think it's always been interesting from the outset. Our wines have always been considered lean and green, but you look, they were 13 and a half for a while.
Did you say that? Lean and green?
Not me.
No, never. But within the market at any point in time, that's where we sat.
Yeah.
But the wines have moved. In 15, it's interesting. We didn't understand Ferguson for the first 10 years. We were just making wine with the fruit. And then it was around 15 that we started to see this back palate emerge. And you could see it during ferment. You could see it through maturation. You can see it in the wines. But I think with the irrigation early, we were affecting the structure of the wine. And it was only when we took it away that all of a sudden what we now just consider the basic DNA of this Ferguson property is something that only came later. So this, how do you fulfill potential of a site? How do you realise the potential, whether it's cordon height, whether it's irrigation, all these things, they all have an impact. It's like talking about closures. Everything has an impact. Is it an impact that allows the vineyard to come to the surface, or does it obscure somehow?
When we're with you, the passion for these vineyards just like radiates out of you, right? Like we're driving along the road and you're waving out the window to pull over, because you can see a bit of dirt cut out from the side of the cliff, and you're like, look at these soils, it's great. Like, why does it matter? Like, I know we all
Probably does it?
Well, I don't know. We all sit here and we talk about it like it matters, and we think it matters, but why does it matter? You know, at the end of the day, it's a drink, and to most punters and consumers, they're never going to really understand or want to understand that stuff. But for wine, like, that is the magic of wine, isn't it? And why? Why do we care so much?
So it probably doesn't really matter. But why it matters to me is that if we can identify some of these things and then work with those things, then we're doing a better job connecting with the land. If it comes through in the wine, that's rewarding, and you can line up a bunch of different wines and carry on about it. But you catch yourself out so frequently in this industry where you think you're doing the right thing, and then something changes and you realise you've actually been putting a roadblock there.
Right.
And you didn't even know it, you know. So this old sort of motto of we don't know what we don't know. The best example is that cordon height, the fruiting wire, and how my old mate Dirk Nieport would taste all those wines blind and then be able to say, this wine tastes like it's a high fruiting wire. I still don't get it. But what I can say now is through all the trials, lower cordon articulates the site better than higher cordon.
Right.
At least in all our trials.
And that looks like in practice what's seeing a bit more of the kind of minerality or the soils kind of come
structure, detail, shape, form, that recognises this place is different to another place. If we're doing multiple sites, then you're looking for anything that allows that to be amplified.
How do you even enjoy a glass of wine, Mac? You're just like...
if you taste the dirt.
No, not at all. I taste the dirt, but like that level of intricacy and going, this expresses this, you know, a tenth of a degree more.
Because if you see it in other people's wines, it's worth celebrating.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, if we see it in our wines, whether people like the wines or don't like the wines, if they can see that in the wine, that's enough.
That's the goal.
Because you can't please everyone, and we've been talking about it. You just don't want to get caught in that cycle.
Yeah.
But if people can say, all right, that's not for me, but I can see exactly that detail you're talking about, then that's honouring that place properly.
God, it's deep stuff, and I love it. But it's a fascinating conversation because like the level of obsession that we see with you and this project and this idea, and I know that it pushes you and drives you to keep uncovering more and more layers, you know. And every year there's the cordon height we've been talking about, and everything else that you're doing at the vineyards. It's amazing.
Yeah, but then you get your daughter saying, how's your science project? And you realise that we can't take it too seriously. We can do the best we can, but it's still a beverage to just say it's you know, it's just from out here.
It's just
how
a drink,
good,
isn't it? So fast forward to the, sorry? Yeah, good. Fast forward to the current day.
Yep.
Well, current-ish, 2022. So this is a brand new release. There's a suite of wines, obviously, but just focusing on Ferguson and looking at this compared to 06, compared to 15. Obviously, the varieties don't matter. To 22. Where is this vineyard at now in the Mac Forbes farming now? You've got a team of 5 or 6 viddies that are out there every day. It's an incredible project. What's happening now in the vineyards that you weren't doing a decade ago?
Hey, I mean, it's interesting because it's a long way from how we're setting up vineyards today. I sit here and I'm looking at the knee pads over there for our new vineyards because we've altered so many things compared to where this vineyard
I didn't
sits.
realise that's what they were. I
Yeah.
love that you've got knee pads ready to go in each vineyard.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because you think you're making all these improvements and it's probably, you know, the human factor of aren't we good making these changes? But then you've got something where the plants are so beautifully adapted to a place and they are honouring the place better than we can in a way. And so we get to just try to carry that. It's a bit like the old Wesburn site that I might have told you, but, you know, to be neglected for a decade plus, still found it. And for all the positive things we did and introduced, like mulching and cover crops and better pruning, all these things, it just felt like it was tolerating us. It was just a reluctant, sure, you think that's... And I feel like Ferg's morphing into that it's so adapted to its own environment. And I think we've done some good things to help, allow that to happen. But these plants are just, they're comfortable. And
I don't know whether it's this season. I know 22, the lovely vintage and more structural, but there's an intensity and a concentration in the 2022 that I think is fabulous. And it's not a bigger wine, I don't think. Like, it still has all that detail and nuance, but there is, Wade, I don't know what you thought trying 22s, but there's, oh, well, help yourself to a glass. There's a presence in that wine that makes you stop and go like, wow.
So I remember tasting it through ferment in the vine. So we're there before, they're long rows, 200-metre rows, and it's just this little band through the middle because the top's too windy and the bottom's got more topsoil and quite a lot more vigorous. So the middle's where this perfume, it's sort of, you're eating the fruit and it's just pouring out of your nose, this intense perfume.
Then you're
getting the seeds and the skin. It's all that mid-back palate. And I think, it's important to, at least for me, to recognise or articulate that when people talk about where we pick and then it might be on the earlier side, we're not picking to have high acid and we're not picking to have low alcohol or greenness. We want clarity of structure. And we just see when you let fruit hang, everything softens, acids do drop, alcohol goes up and alcohol changes mouthfeel, but critically the phenolics also keep evolving and getting softer. And so to get a really vivid snapshot, we're looking at where the tannins are just so precise and detailed and
so
vivid.
Tannin first.
I think I see what you're talking about, where there's depth of flavour there, which isn't roundness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
it's real coiled and
it still feels tight, intense, and structured.
Yeah,
there's depth to it. So that it's like,
and with focus on that back palate, it draws you towards the back palate, and you have to swallow the wine to taste it properly.
Yes, you must swallow the wine,
which you don't get on 06. 06 is lovely.
Yeah,
but it definitely sits more front palate, and it did from day one.
It did from day
so
one.
that's the change in the vineyard and the way the vines grow in that hill.
What about in the shed then? Obviously, you've got lots of toys and tools and stuff there. And we spoke about earlier that it's all good and well to do all this amazing farming, but you need to invest in the equipment to make sure you can do justice to those sites.
Yeah.
Is that just a constant tinkering and evolution with how you make the wines with you and Hannah?
Yeah, you're never fully satisfied. But we love concrete for this vineyard. On paper, the winemaker hasn't changed a bit. There's a little bit of whole bunch. There's a bit of foot stomping. There's some whole berry. Long time on skins. You're talking maybe a month.
Yeah.
And then it goes back either
The
into
longer
concrete.
time on skins, does that help just kind of balance the tannin at all?
So.
Like Nebbiolo, or
It's bloody moody. Like it goes from looking really, you could go really short time on skin, 7 days, thereabouts, and there's beautiful balance. And then it goes into a bloody hole and it's just arms and legs and it's so out of whack. And when that happens, I think now just being an old bastard, you just go, okay, we know where it is and you don't stress. But I remember, and you watch other people around who aren't used to it, they freak out. And you've left behind this beautiful poise into chaos. And then literally in the space of 2 hours, you can go from chaos to calm. And that might be, you know, in the 4th week on skins. And all of a sudden that clarity and the stillness and calmness on the surface comes back. And the shape is just a little bit more detailed. And we go, great, now we can press, you know, for whatever reason. So they're on a journey. They don't always look good. They don't always, you know, even in bottle, these move around so actively. And we joked before about kids and, you know, do you have a favourite vineyard?
Obviously,
or, you know, but recognising that they do move is quite comforting. So they don't, it's not me feeling possessive of them or having a sense of ownership. It's just the vineyard kicking at times and saying, well, I'm going in a different direction or I'm having a rest here or I don't, I'm not in the mood to be bloody shown around today. You know, they're so lovely in their personalities.
Well, we're not looking now just because it was too much to do, unfortunately, but we've got on the bench over there the Little Yarra, the Spear Gully, the Ferguson Chardonnay, the other vineyards. Obviously, there's Nambruke coming on board. There's Don, all these incredible sites. Is this where Mac Forbes Wines is at the moment? Is this the most excited and optimistic you've been? Forgetting about the market and the challenges in the wine market at the moment, just with the wines and the vineyards, is this the best it's been?
Yeah, you know, 21 years, we've lost vineyards through to phylloxera. We've lost vineyards through lease agreements that have expired. So you look back and go, God, there's a bit of carnage there.
Yeah.
We've now got 5 vineyards where we've got a glimpse. The door's just starting to open and something like this is a total game changer for the team. So the 24 Chenin.
So what they do?
So is this the best wine on the table, the unlabelled one?
Yeah.
I don't know. It might be. Not that the variety matters. But we're driving into this property.
Yeah.
And you've as we're coming around the corner and we're, you know, a kilometre away, you're saying, look over there at that hill, at that mountain over there, and you see a little patch cut out of it on a steep slope. That's the Don Valley vineyard we've been talking about for so long. We're going to go up there. And we're coming up the hill, and I feel like the car's going to roll down the hill in this weather, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's struggled. And, you know, that's the Chenin Blanc that we planted. And Wade and I were huge fans of the Wesi Chenin, love that wine. And it was so unique and it was watercolours, wasn't it? Cracking it. It was a beautiful wine. And this is like a wow moment for us.
Yeah, I think this is the first vineyard where we said, right, inheriting old vineyards that we've got to replant, stuff trying to nurse back old vineyards that we're not quite sure about. Let's just find the empty hill and go for it. So whether it's a single stake Gamay and Pinot and Trousseau, or whether it's Nebbiolo or Chenin, we're doing it exactly the way we want. And I think we saw in 24, we'd had 7 years of no crop. And everyone's so strong in the belief of where we're going, but without something in the glass to show for it, there's a little bit of blind faith and a little bit of Hail Marys about it. And to finally get the fruit off and see in year 1, after all the sacrifice and not rushing it, how it's like you're getting to know someone for the first time, even though you kind of think you know them. Yeah.
And 7 years. I mean, you know, most new vineyards get planted and, you know, 2, 3, maybe 4 at a push. There's a crop there and you can start to see something. Yeah, 7 years before you get a glass of wine.
1 barrel, 300 bottles. This is the 3rd bottle we've opened.
Wow.
And
the packaging needs work, but it's, you know,
I think the packaging is perfect.
It's classic.
It's even got the grape on the front.
Yeah, yeah, it does. But there's I mean, you mentioned this is obviously made from 2 different picks, a riper pick, which you see that slightly more tropical golden fruit in here. But the acidity and minerality that's running underneath that is really something.
Just holds this present. So, yeah, to answer your question, I think probably is as exciting as it's been.
Yeah.
It's still as terrifying as it's ever been. But I just feel like the next 10 years we're going to see wines we haven't seen before. So this is a really unusual part of the valley. No one's ever planted near here on this aspect. So I feel like we're turning a page and going to see some excitement that, you know, we may not have seen, but we will going forward. And for all the challenges of farming with seasons getting earlier, it's going to be pockets like this that set us up as a region for the future.
You mentioned over the next 10 years, we're likely to see all these exciting new things. Do you think much about your legacy or what the end goal is for Mac Forbes Wines, or is it just doing what you do year in, year out and hoping we move forward?
No, I'll be dead soon enough and it won't matter. But if people start to say, well, I like that Don Valley pocket for this, and this is maybe a better way of interacting with land, that's good enough for me. The legacy thing's a bit overstated, I reckon.
Well, mate, I reckon the Mac Forbes legacy will be exciting, and I think you've done more than most to paint a picture of the Yarra Valley, which is one thing. It's an amazing place. It's an enormous place. Driving from one end to the other, you know, it's an hour and a half drive, and it's so diverse. And we drove through rainforests today and Aussie bush and everywhere else. And I think these vineyards and these wines are telling that story. And on top of that, I think you've really paved a path for a lot of other producers to do things differently and give an example that you don't need to go the tried and tested route. You can try and do things in a unique way. Like you mentioned, John Middleton said to you probably 2 or 3 decades ago, like, learn from what everyone else says, but don't trust them. Do it. Yeah. You know, you got to make your own mind up.
Yeah, I think as we've sort of talked about, but the Australian mindset of trying to be everything to everyone, we just need to be true to our own backyard, knowing we don't need to please everyone. And hopefully, you know, within that sort of landscape of consumers, there are some people that gravitate to it and some that don't. But we're going to be in a much better place if we just stick to doing things as well as we possibly can and trust the right people will find us, you know, to support that business.
But build it, they will come.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, mate, thank you. Thank you for your generosity the last couple of days looking after us. Thank you for the amazing wines. Thank you for the long-term partnership and support. You were literally the very first winemaker that ever came and saw.
That was great. I remember that vividly. That was bloody awesome.
Sitting in Brett's
how good is this industry with relationships, and
it's the best. That's why we love it.
What it's all about.
All right, mate. Good on you, mate.
Thanks,
cheers,
brother.
Mate. All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks so much.